agreersहरू अगाडि आइदिनुस् no agrees then disagreersहरू please बिचमा आइदिनुस्
So I feel like I disagreed in the sense that what are the costo way the question structure sounds it's very PC as well. Propagates is it talking about like propaganda or stuff like that? Because like at the end of the day, I feel like we are just like fighting for our own rights, individual rights. And I feel like queerness in general, if you look at it from history, we have gave so much to culture. Okay? So like we are the culture one as okay. So and people don't acknowledge that. So there are a lot of things that people like to cherry pick from our culture and they like to capitalize off of it. And this much we don't get the credit behind that. And conversation a lot of like Gen Z lingos are based off of like queer culture and people don't question that. Question the narrative like question and like are we erasing like our own history by not like not standing up for like what we talk about and how we feel and how we act and how we contribute actively to culture, especially with civilization, culture. I feel like if you even go way back, I feel like queer people have been at the forefront of like giving back to the culture. Okay? So culture ka highlight garna whether it be through like arts or like through literature or through any medium, okay? Like culture like reflect garna I feel like a queer person has been responsible for that. I'm not being biased. I don't think I'm being biased, but it's the lux, okay? And yeah, I feel like too, sometimes people kind of like pigeonhole us into kind of like a subset of like us just talking about our rights, but we don't talk about our achievements. So हामीले चाहिँ कति contribute गरेछ like if you just think about it हैन your Apple अहिले CEO को छ त Tim Cook हैन Tim Cook he's also kind of like he also identifies as queer and we don't talk about like the queer progress कति भइरहेछ queer joy के हो हैन like हामीले how are we actively contributing it towards like हुन्छ नि अब पहिला पनि धेरै वर्ष यो के रे सोसाइटीमा like how have we revolutionized like the way people think हुन्छ नि the way people act अनि यस्तो माइन्डसेट कसरी चेन्ज गरेको छौं अनि त्यसपछि डेफिनेसन्सहरु कसरी चेन्ज गरेको छौं अनि कल्चरलाई कसरी प्रोग्रेस गरेको छौं भनेर चाहिँ हामी त्यो कुरा चाहिँ धेरै बोलेकै छैन जस्तो लाग्छ हाम्रो यस्तो अचिभमेन्ट्सहरुको बारेमा चाहिँ बोलेकै छैन कि फर कल्चर एन्ड फर स्पेशली अ सिभिलाइजेसन सो त्यसले गर्दाखेरि पनि समटाइम्स kind of our dialogues gets kind of misconstrued in a sense that हामीले चाहिँ एउटा अब narrative or propaganda matre spread out but like when you go back through history do your own research and see like how we have been at the forefront of like civilizations as well I think you have to be active in like doing your own research as well.
Okay, just shortly, I think the prompt itself comes out of this fear of the because if there is a very strong group, if there is a strong community, त्यो कम्युनिटीको एडभर्सली ओके अब यस्तो छ दे आर सो स्ट्रङ भन्ने बित्तिकै यसले अब केही नराम्रो गर्ला ओर केही अनकम्फर्टेबल केही गर्ला ओर समथिङ स्ट्रेन्ज केही गर्ला भन्ने त्यो फियर चाहिँ आउँछ नै होला अनि आई थिङ्क नट जस्ट विथ एलजिबिटिक्यू कि एनी काइन्ड अफ स्ट्रङ कम्युनिटीमा चाहिँ यो फियर आउँछ होला द्याट्स वाइ
people think that they're spreading propaganda.
There could be, they could be
intent,
something.
Malicious intent. We are everywhere.
But you hununko karan नै because it comes out of so much of struggle, so much of so much of trying to be there, trying to be even trying to live. I mean, this comes out of the community is formed so that there is a safe space, there is a place for people to live as they are. So your basic living सँग connected छ के there's I mean अब कुनै situation मा होला but your intent of this community is completely not that.
Do you want to go? Okay. मेरो reasoning त्यस्तै थियो के because how I see it हैन as a reference point it's like religion जस्तै के हुन्छ नि like if you look at Islam हुन्छ नि as a religion हुन्छ नि कुरानमा के लेखेको छ यता you might not agree with everything but then त्यो baseline जे छ नि that their religion is based off of it's not so discriminatory ke it makes sense even in Christianity a lot of the stuff said in the Bible it's good ke हुन्छ नि like के हुन्छ त्यो right path मा पुर्याउने यता छ हुन्छ नि same with Buddhism हुन्छ नि but then the reason why I use Islam को example is because how people perceive it हुन्छ नि and how us as humans turn the religious writing हुन्छ नि in हाम्रो आफ्नै कन्टेक्स्टमा अनि what we create out of it that differentiates between communities के हुन्छ नि you can take something एकदम basic हुन्छ नि एकदम like राम्रो intentionबाट आएको अनि you can bastardize it के त्यो religionमा कति हुन्छ के अनि हाम्रो queer communityमा पनि there isn't really a hidden agenda. People tend to think that there is, होइन. We do have के भन्छ not guidelines हो. Just हाम्रो के हो त point हुन्छ just let us be who we want. We're not harming anyone भनेर. But that being said, even though that sounds एकदम like righteous, एकदम राम्रो होइन, there will always be bad people के सधैँ हुन्छ नि and there will always be people who use this हुन्छ नि thing नराम्ररी like के भन्छ so many predatory people हरू हुन्छ नि like के भन्छ I hear from मेरो के भन्छ queer like gay साथीहरू पनि how many old like white men हुन्छ नि come to Kathmandu just to hook up with like young gay के भन्छ boys हरू के भन्छ नि अब त्यसलाई के हामी freedom भन्ने कि के भन्ने that is एकदम predatory behavior नि त अनि I talked about how codependence build हुन सक्छ होइन within the community if हुन्छ नि you're trying to teach someone the ways of a queer खाले हुन्छ नि किनकि के भन्छ जस अलिकति पर्सनल एक्सपिरियन्सबाट पनि होइन त्यो you have a lot of faith in this one person because you think that they know the way हुन्छ नि but then again like एकदमै त्यो predatory खाले relationship पनि बन्छ के and I've seen that happen a lot in the queer community हुन्छ नि where एकदम young people who are just figuring themselves out attach themselves to these like grown ass people हुन्छ नि who are एकदम त्यो groom गर्ने खाले यताउता होइन त्यो छ के आफ्नै ठाउँमा but then के भन्छ I spoke about this अस्ति पनि मुनि हामी यतिकै क्याजुअली कुरा गर्दाखेरि अनि त्यो वर्कसपहरुमा पनि but then us as हुन्छ नि a community नै we are a minority हैन and what happens हुन्छ नि usually is when it comes to minorities त्यो already सानो ग्रुपमा एकजना मान्छेले केही नराम्रो गरे पनि people tend to use that as a point of reference to generalize the whole community के हुन्छ नि like oh my god when it comes to men like cis men हैन they have this whole thing they're like oh not all men da 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 हुन्छ नि नराम्रो केटाहरु छ तर why should we bear the burden why should we हुन्छ नि like के भन्छ when it comes to women when it comes to हुन्छ नि like जनजाति मान्छेहरु पनि when it comes to the queer community एउटा मान्छेले गरेको नराम्रो कुरा त्यही जेनरलाइज गरेर होल कम्युनिटीमा रिफ्लेक्ट गराइदिन्छ के ऊ यो क्वेयर मान्छेले त जेलमा गएर यस्तो यस्तो गरेको छ हैन why should we give you rights भनेर हैन यताउता भनेर so we need to be very mindful about that as well हुन्छ नि when we say that we're spreading propaganda or like हुन्छ नि we have this agenda भनेर because you need to know especially these opinions built हुन्छ नि on top of minorities भनेर you need to be very mindful as to where they're coming from के हुन्छ नि if you think that women are a certain way then you need to really deep के भन्छ dig deep and think हुन्छ नि exactly dissect how that thought त्यो कसरी form भयो नै भनेर नि के किनकि a lot of times एकदमै internalize त्यो hate speech हरु internalize त्यो कसै भनौं conflict त्यो already यतिकै बाँचेर मात्रै पनि आउँछ के आफ्नो भित्र
so yeah adding on top of that तिमीले भनेको कुरामा चाहिँ so अघिनेको कुरामा चाहिँ what I don't want people to take away from that fact is like कहिलेकाहीँ चाहिँ एकदमै बाइनरीमा गइदियो नि त when we're right now we're also talking about like how gender is kind of like a spectrum हैन अनि it's also kind of like societal norms and the culture and the how culture conditions us to express yourself okay so अब एउटा मान्छेले एउटा म्यानलाई हुन्छ नि अब when you're talking about अब young boys भनेको भएर अब there are certain men who chase trans people as well so they fetishize them so we are not talking about that fact as well हैन so त्यस्तो पनि हुन त हुन्छ नि त so there are a lot of like straight men हैन उनीहरु they want to stay in the label of being straight and which is completely valid as well they chase like trans people and that's kind of like a fact because like they fetishize it हैन अनि उनीहरु कति गएर थाइल्यान्डहरुमा गएर पनि they chase that and I've heard somebody हैन trans women are so feminine भनेर अनि मलाई चाहिँ whole idea behind this हैन it's kind of like rooted on this issue of like मलाई चाहिँ के लाग्छ भन्दाखेरि queer people queer identity and like existence पनि based गरेको चाहिँ it's kind of like since it's in a spectrum and it's very diverse and people would like to simplify it and okay हैन भने जस्तो त्यो बाइनरी सेन्समा मात्रै बोल्छ when there's a lot of facets towards it हैन so त्यसमा पनि हुन्छ कुरा कन्भर्सेसन त्यसमा पनि गर्नुपर्छ जस्तो लाग्छ कि अनि त्यो कुरा पनि हो अनि अर्को के छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ I feel like you're talking about like societal expectation and stuff like that अनि agenda and stuff like that मलाई चाहिँ के लाग्छ भन्दाखेरि as I grew up and as I became more educated as I did my research हैन अनि there's nothing more like punk ass than a feminine man, okay? Because like he does not give a fuck about like what society thinks about him, right? And त्यस्तो गर्दा I think like what society has problem चाहिँ innate चाहिँ femininity मा छ जस्तो लाग्छ के मलाई. And because like if a man becomes feminine, it's like how dare you being in position of power, so you reject our ideals. तिमीलाई यो कुर्सीमा नबसेर कुर्सी भने जस्तै metaphorical कुर्सीमा नबसेर like how dare you reject our ideals when we are running society this way for generations भने जस्तो. And whenever a woman is like termed masculine, or if you are like mass presenting type वाला भन्छ नि, how dare you as a woman, it's like are you trying to actively take up that space where a man should belong भने जस्तो हुन्छ. So I think it's kind of like our deep-rooted sense of fear of like femininity and like the sense त्यसमै जस्तो लाग्छ कि मलाई चाहिँ. And we should also like dissect our ideologies हरू पनि कहिलेकाहीँ चाहिँ त्यसमै छ कि कहिलेकाहीँ हाम्रो the actions that we do अनि the things that we speak कहिलेकाहीँ चाहिँ हामीले यो कता बेस चाहिँ कताबाट आइरहेको छ. So internalized homophobia भइरहेको छ कता, किनभने even in queer community, like the femininity is like discouraged and masculinity is prized, and so why is that happening? So why aren't we talking more about it? Just the data, this the हुन्छ नि त. So what is the logic behind that as well? So त्यसमा नि कुरा चाहिँ गर्नुपर्छ जस्तो like dialogue चाहिँ गर्नुपर्छ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई.
I think going back to the prompt, from what I heard, I am part of the LGBTQIA plus community, and I do not, the P word, like promote LGBT supported भने जस्तो थियो नि त हैन. So I disagree with that because हाम्रो कम्युनिटीमा धेरै प्रकारको मान्छे व्यक्तिहरू छन् र उहाँहरूको धेरै चाहना, विशेस र अधिकारहरूलाई लड्नु पर्ने छ. अनि त्यसमा सबैजना को हामीले बुझ्न पनि सक्दैनौँ because that's not our journey as well. अनि so I agree with it. So that's why I disagreed with that prompt. If that makes sense. तर अर्को चाहिँ मैले चाहिँ त्यो प्रम्प्टबाट अलिकति सायद मेरो दिमागमा यो एक्सपिरियन्सले गरेर पो कि अलिकति नेगेटिभ प्रम्प्ट लाग्यो हैन. किनभने कहिलेकाहीँ when I interact, when I go to certain places, they say बाबु तिमी त कति राम्रो रहेछ तर तिमीहरूको कम्युनिटीमा अरूहरू चाहिँ they're too much, they're too like उत्ताउलो, why do they have to do this, why do they have to behave like this भन्ने खालको कुराहरू निकाल्नुहुन्छ क्या. अनि so I feel like it's almost like हाम्रो कम्युनिटी चाहिँ उहाँहरूले अघि तपाईहरुले भन्नुभयो जस्तै एउटै त्यो एउटा typical ideal fit गर्यो भने मात्रै एक्सेप्ट गर्ने खालको पक्ष पनि धेरैले भन्छन्. And but that's when I have to tell them, but why do you think you are normal? Maybe you are abnormal and that is normal, हैन. अनि so यो डायलग पनि हुनुपर्छ. तर त्यही हो, it's like हामी we don't have to perform to be somebody else because if some of us are who we are, then that is it भन्ने खालको लाग्छ. So I think I took that from the prompt, which is
All right, so we've come to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for being a part of Roundabout. It was a pleasure having all of you together in our platform. Ani je भन्नुभयो, it was very interesting. Hoping हाम्रो viewers-हरुले पनि त्यति नै positive कुराहरु लिनुहुन्छ होला यो एपिसोडबाट. I'm really sorry for the technical difficulty that we had today and अलगे सेट पनि शिफ्ट गर्नु पर्यो. तर शिफ्ट गरे पनि I think एकदमै रमाइलो भयो. It was really fun हाम्रो लागि चाहिँ. I'm hoping it's the same for you guys. So before we leave the set,